Hi, this is Mary Jo Webster. In this video, we're going to basically have a little spreadsheet refresher. These are some basic spreadsheet skills that hopefully you've already learned, but we're going to go over them again to make sure everyone in the group is leveled up and has the basics under their belt. So this is going to include some basic things like sum and average and median and percentage change, sorting and filtering, and some basics like that. So if you're following along with the spreadsheet I'm using, day one intermediate spreadsheet, you should first go to the file menu and choose make a copy, and then choose to put this in your own drive and pick a spot where you can find it again. And you could, you could rename it even my copy of in order to make it clear that this is your copy, not the one that everybody is using. So you do that, make a copy. And once you're in that file, then make sure you close the original file so you don't have multiple tabs up here confusing you. And I see I have multiple tabs, so I'm going to clear some things. Okay, so we're going to go into the sheet called City Budget down at the bottom. And this is just some really basic budget numbers that you might get from a city with perhaps the current year's budget and then the next year's budget, which is probably what they're talking about at the city council meeting. And it's usually a proposed budget, and it would allow you to see what how things are changing in each department. This is actually how I got my start in spreadsheets, was covering a budget. And I did not know how to do a percentage change I was using a calculator and I didn't know how to do it in a spreadsheet. So this is what got me hooked. This is a great example of a lot of the basics that we might need to do in a spreadsheet. So let's look at this. We have each department's expenditures at the top, and then the total for the whole city. So that should be all of these added together. And then we have revenues and then the citywide totals as well. So when a city provides you, or any agency provides you things that are already calculated that you could check, the first thing you should do is check. So we're going to check to see if these numbers are accurate. So I'm going to put in A18, I'm going to call it my total, and we're going to use the sum function, SUM, which is how you can add a range of values. And the range could be going down, it could be going across to the right, but it needs to be in sequence with each other, and you can't say I want to skip one of these in the middle. It has to be in sequence with each other. You can always, if you do need to add like two things together, you can always just do simple addition. You can say B3 plus C3 to add together more than one number. Just refer to the cell addresses. We're not going to do that today. We're going to add up this whole range of numbers right here. So in B18, which is where I want to put this year total that I'm going to calculate, I'm going to start my formula with an equal sign and then the word sum, and it's probably going to give you a little prompt. And we're going to say B3 colon B15, and then close the parentheses. That's the range that we want to do. It's actually going to give you a little image of the sum right there that you can see if it's correct or not right away. And it's also in orange dotted line. It's showing you what it's calculating, which numbers it's using. So you can kind of spot check your typing skills. What if you accidentally just typed 14? That would be one of the things you would look for, is to make sure you didn't miss that one there at the end. So I have it. Oh, that looks good. And then you can use your copy tool, which let's talk about cursors here for a minute. When you hover around a cell, you're going to get different cursors. So when you're at the top, you're going to get a hand, and that would allow you to just move something somewhere else, the hand cursor. And then the arrow cursor at the bottom is very benign, and it's just kind of a highlighting tool. So if I say highlight these cells, it will turn it blue. That's when you want to make sure your pointer cursor, that arrow cursor, is what is in play. Now, if I say we're going to copy a formula, then you need your copy tool. And to get that, you have to go onto the lower right corner where you see that dot, and you want to get it so that it's a thin black cross, not an arrow, but the thin black cross. Once you have the thin black cross, then you can click your mouse, hold left mouse, hold that left mouse button, and then drag it to wherever you want that formula to do its work now. So in this case, we're going to drag over to C18 and let go. And if you double click, you'll see that it changed our formula to C3 to C15. Because we moved from B to C, it knew to change the formula from B3 to C3 and B15 to C15. So that dragging, copying the formula will change the formula as it goes. Oh dear, look at that. They did not do their math right. So I guess we've got to make a call to the city, whoever gave us this data at the city, and find out which number is actually correct. Is it my total, or is something wrong up in these individual numbers that might have led to an incorrect total here? So we've got to solve that before we publish anything. So now go ahead and do the revenues again. Same thing. You can notice that I highlighted this range in order to get it B21 to B30. And again, I can use my copy tool, drag it over, and you'll see this looks smaller than the other ones. It's just the size of the numbers, or perhaps the font is looking a little different. But these numbers look good. So we just have this one number that is funny, and we would want to do something with that. Okay. So another thing we might want to do, the big thing here is that percentage change. So you always want to, in this case, we want each department to have its own percentage change calculated. So then you would do that on the row where the percentage change is. Notice that down here we did the total at the bottom and separate from our other data. That is because this is combining all of those. And you don't want that mixed into your data. Remember, we talked about the concept of a data island. This is kind of our island here. And we're going to add a new column to our island, but we don't want totals to be mixed into our island, because you could accidentally add the total to all the individual numbers and end up with a number that's double the size of what it's supposed to be. So you never want totals or medians or averages or anything like that inside your island. But a percent change is okay. So percent change is new minus old divided by old. So that's two sets of math here. So we're going to do an open parentheses. So new number is C3 minus old number is B3. Close the parentheses. That's the first math calculation we want it to do. This is as close to algebra as I'm ever going to take you, and all the algebra I know. So just order of operations here. We want it to do that first, and then divide by new minus old divided by old, so B3. And that is how you'd get a percentage change. It might suggest autofill. When you're a beginner, I suggest saying no to this, because we're going to check our formula first. You want to go back and make sure you double click on it. You can see the columns it did its work on. You can make sure that it's doing what you want. And then the other thing you can do here is, right now this is decimals. So we can go up in our bar up here, the menu bar up here, and there's formatting options. And we can say format as percent. And we can also tell it to reduce the decimal places. We'll just do 1 for now. And so we've made that nice and pretty. Once you do that, when you copy it down, it makes it pretty for all of them. So I'm going to get my copy tool, drag down to the bottom of my departments. Okay, so now we have this, and I wanted to sort it by which one changed the most, but it's already sorted that way. So we'll sort it the other way, which one declined the most. So sorting in Google Sheets is just a tad harder than sorting in Excel. if we go up here and try to go to the sort menu and say sort sheet, it could potentially sort all these things that we have down here, and you could run into a bit of a hot mess. And it could also move your headers into your data, into your island, and you don't want that. So the first thing you have to do is make sure you identify your island. And on a Windows machine, if you have your cursor somewhere in the data and do Control A on your keyboard, Control A will get you highlight your island. On a Mac, it's Command A. And so then you want to make sure your island is accurate, that there's nothing extraneous in here, nothing you don't want sorted. If there is a problem, then that's where you want to make sure those empty rows and empty columns are separating your data from everything else and making your nice island. So once you have your island, then you can go to the data menu and choose sort range. And then we're going to do advanced range sorting options. Yes, I know it says sort range by column B. We need to do the advanced range sorting options in order to make sure our headers don't get mixed around. And also, as a beginner, I don't recommend using shortcuts here. It's important for you to think through what you're doing and make sure you're clear about what you're doing. So once we go to that advanced range sorting, we have data as a header row. And then here's our list of columns. Here's why having column labels is super important, that header row. Sometimes I call it labels, sometimes I call it header row. Either way, so we can say percentage change, and then we could say A to Z, which would give us the lowest on top. Z to A would give us the highest on top. And we could say sort. Now it just sorted our island. It didn't sort anything else. We just flipped it around. We can go back to that now and go to data while it's still highlighted, or if it's not, again, Control A or Command A, just make sure your cursor, this blue box, is in your data. Control A or Command A on a Mac. Data, sort range, advanced range sorting options. Data has header row, then you can choose what you want. So let's do next year, and we'll put the one with the biggest budget at the top. Say sort. Okay, so that's sorting and percent change and totals. Let's do one more thing that's real common when you have numbers like this, when you have dollar values especially, or dollar values is probably the big one, but sometimes you have other things. We might want to know what's the average or the median value among all these departments. This is not the greatest example for using average or median. Something like baseball player salaries, where you want to see what's the median salary among a team of players, is probably more common, but we can use this to show you how to do that. So whatever you're trying to do an average or median on, you have your whole list of things. So in this case, all the departments, we want to know what the median or the average expenditures are across those departments. I'm going to add in some rows so we can do those average and medians down here by our totals. Right now we don't have enough space here, so I'm going to highlight on the number 19, and if you drag your cursor down a little bit to get it highlighted, then you can right mouse click and say insert 4 rows above. However many rows you highlight is how many rows it'll let you insert at one time. There we have a bunch of space. So now we'll do average first. So an average, what an average does is it takes all these values, adds them together, and divides by the number of values. And spreadsheets have a function called average that does all that math for you, so you don't have to do the crazy part. So just like sum, we have to tell it the range that we want to average. And so in this case, B3 to B15, just like we did on the sum, and you get an average. So on average, the departments in the city have expenditures of $963,000. We can copy that over, and it went up to over $1 million in the new year. Now, median, let's quick do a median, then I'll talk about the difference between the two. So median is going to be, we're going to use that same range of data, B3 to B15. What a median does is it puts all the values in order and then finds the middle one. And so if there's, 20 values, it's going to go to number 10, and that's what it's going to return for you. So in this case, it's giving us 305,000. So the rule of thumb here is that you look at the average and the median, and if they are far apart from each other, like they are here, you're probably better off using the median. And this is especially true with, home prices and baseball player salaries and things like that, because one or two oddballs, outliers like we have here, like the police department, can really skew an average higher than what we consider average to kind of be typical. So you look at a baseball team and you have one guy making $10 million and almost everybody making 500,000. The typical player on that team is probably making 500,000 or close to that, whereas that guy making 10 million is not typical, right? So that's the rule of thumb on that, but calculating them is quite easy. And as I explained here, this is hard. This is a hard situation to be able to use an average or a median, but it shows you how it's done.